In the movie Limitless, Bradley Cooper goes from being a struggling, sluggish writer to being a high performing billionaire in the span of just a few months. All of this happens from him taking a pill that makes him access 100% of his brain's abilities. The question we want to ask ourselves is something like this actually possible? Obviously, this is a Hollywood film, but I would say yes, it is possible, but not in the way we may think. The way you achieve a limitless state in terms of your energy and focus today is not by taking some kind of supplement, which never actually works anyway. It's not by taking some kind of nootropic brain booster that some guru pushed on you. And it's definitely not by taking some kind of pharmaceutical grade medication, which will just make your energy and focus worse in the long term. Actually, it has nothing to do with pills at all. It has to do with real, natural living superfoods. The same superfoods the rich elite has used for generations to increase their performance. Ask yourself this question: why do we always see the ultra wealthy portrayed in movies eating certain foods like foie gras, caviar, and oysters? Why is this? Could it be because these foods contain special compounds that actually support your health, energy, focus, and success like nothing else? Well, maybe, maybe not. But today I'm going to be breaking this down, and I'm going to show you some very unique and powerful superfoods that you can use to supercharge your health and performance. But first, I just want to address this question you might have: why should I listen to you? Well, basically, I'm an energy optimizing health coach, and I specialize in optimizing energy levels, focus, and success in high performers. So the stuff I do actually works and gets results if you follow it. A case in point proving this would be one of my recent clients, Nikolai. He went from a sluggish school student to building a six-figure business over the span of working with me. Now, obviously, I'm not taking credit for all of that. Nikolai did a lot of hard work, and ultimately that's what really created his business. But what's very interesting is that Nikolai himself mentions that he probably couldn't have done this if he wasn't following the things that I'm going to talk about today. So instead of me just yapping on about it, let's hear it from Nikolai himself in a short clip.
Having that energy, having that drive and endurance is what allowed me to keep going. Without that, I would probably not have had the endurance, the energy to get through it, right? Attracted a lot of high profile clients like Andrew Tate, Shaolin Temple in China. We actually went to China to which and there I was doing like the biohacking, and the monks were looking at me weird. Yeah, like I said, completely changed my life. You can feel so much better. You can have so much more energy with small inputs, like into what you put into your body. If you translate into the work, translate into sports, translate into life, confidence, whatever. It's like anything, right?
So that's very interesting in my opinion. And if you want to watch the full interview with Nikolai, you can find it in the link in the description. But what I want to mention is that Nikolai is not the only one. Okay, I've worked with many other business owners like Lau here, who was part of my program. He was dealing with severe acne and it's now healed. And he says he just feels amazing all the time. Again, you can see his testimonial below. I've also worked with Laszlo, who's a business executive. And he was also looking to improve his performance and focus and energy and everything. And he basically gets much more leverage from his nutrition and sleep and everything else. So the reason I'm showing you this is obviously for proof, to show you that what I'm about to tell you actually works. I'm not just some random guy who just went on Google and made this video. I'm actually having real results with real people who are following methods that are similar to what we are going to talk about in this video. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. And I just kind of want to start this video off with a slight warning. So the superfoods I'm about to talk about and show you are not rainbow salads and green smoothies. And the reason I say that is because there is this connotation in many people's minds today from mainstream nutrition that something like green smoothies and exotic vegetables and stuff are the actual superfoods where we get all of these limitless focus and energy benefits. In my opinion, that's wrong, and I've talked about that in previous videos. So the reason I'm writing this as a warning is because what we're going to get into here might be stuff you haven't heard a lot of places before. It's also stuff that a lot of people are not doing and eating today. And it's sort of taboo foods, you can almost call it. So it might seem a little gross to you. You might be grossed out, and that's fine. That's natural. So I'm just saying that because you might want to turn off this video when you see these foods, because it's not always the most appealing stuff, but it is the most powerful stuff. And that's why so many people don't really know about these foods, is because they don't really want to go there. So that's just some of them. It's not all of it. All of it is not going to be this unappealing stuff. Don't worry. And if you find it unappealing, I'm going to show you some very good methods that we can make all of this stuff more easy to apply and much more appealing. So let's get into it. But before we get into the foods themselves, I just want to address this topic, which is why supplements rarely work as intended. So when you go into this sort of limitless crowd of biohackers who want to improve their focus and energy, you very often run into very long rabbit holes of supplements and all of these nootropics and even pharmaceuticals in certain cases, which promise the world to you and all the other people who buy into them, but rarely you actually see results with those. And I'm gonna just explain why that is and why we wanna rely on natural whole food nutrients to basically biohack our body to have more energy and have more focus on all of this. So when you get whole food nutrients, they actually come in complexes. But when you get supplements, they are isolated. So this is really important to understand, because what supplements and nootropics and even pharmaceuticals actually are, is they are whole food nutrients that have been isolated and synthesized because some people believe those isolated substances to be behind a certain brain pathway or some kind of cognitive improvement system or whatever. So they want to amplify that very specific isolated nutrient. That could be something like ascorbic acid, which we would find in vitamin C from a citrus fruit, an orange. They basically take that very singular compound and they isolate it down inside their laboratories into this very concentrated supplement, which basically only contains this ascorbic acid. But the problem is that nothing really works like this in nature and nothing works like this inside our body. So the reason vitamin C is able to work so well within humans and other organisms who consume it is because it's not just about ascorbic acid and vitamin C. It actually comes in an entire complex of vitamin C, which has other things in there, folic acid, it has something called vitamin P, and all these other things that we probably even haven't discovered yet. So there's just so much more going on than just ascorbic acid. And the same goes for many of these other nootropics and supplements that people push nowadays, whether it's L-threonine or all these amino acids. It's basically very isolated substances which don't have the complexes to support and synthesize what you really want from that supplement. So the papers, the scientific studies may be very promising when it comes to this amino acid or this isolated substance. But because we're not getting all of the supporting enzymes and other nutrients and acids and amino acids from that food that it's synthesized from, we won't actually see the same results as what we see in the studies and stuff like that. So I just think that's very, very important to understand. And here on the screen, you can see I just have some visual sort of examples of this that I just find fun to look at, honestly. So all the way to the left here, you can see this chromatogram photo of natural vitamin C. It has jagged borders, it has very strong radiation, it has natural factors, vitamin and mineral activity and live enzymes. There's just so much going on here compared to this ascorbic acid, which is what you would find in a supplement. There's basically no biological activity, there's no live enzymes, there's really no indication of live mineral activity as well. So while it may be the same ascorbic acid as what you would find in a natural vitamin C compound, it's just two completely different things when we really look at it, like physically with our eyes. So it's very different. And the other example I have here is a vitamin D molecule. This I find even more fascinating. So you can see a natural vitamin D molecule synthesized by humans after being exposed to sunlight. So it's just a very cool pattern and it just looks incredible, honestly. It's a very nice shape and everything. But when we go to the supplement version below, we can see that it produces this sort of stunted and less developed molecule. It just doesn't look as pleasing and as correct, honestly. And that's because it's basically grown more isolated inside of laboratories, maybe using UV lamps or whatever. They have a bunch of different techniques of making vitamin D molecules nowadays. So that's how they made this molecule, whereas this natural one, synthesized by our own human body from sunlight, is just going to be so much more active and natural for our body to synthesize and get all of the benefits out of. So that's why supplements rarely work. And these are just two different examples when it comes to vitamin D and vitamin C. But we could go down all of these different supplements, whether it's amino acids or these nootropics, and even pharmaceuticals today are synthesized by basically copying natural compounds. So we want the natural compounds as much as possible because our body is basically this very old ancient organism that just thrives on getting the whole complexes, and it doesn't really thrive and work in isolated supplement tendencies. And I'm not saying all supplements are unnecessary or all supplements are bad or anything like that. There are certain cases where we need certain supplements, in my opinion, and that's a topic for another time. I just wanted to mention why you never really see any results with the supplements you take when it comes to energy focus and all this, because it's not where the good stuff is, basically. The good stuff is in the real natural complexes, in the real natural superfoods. So let's get into those now. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is liver. You may have heard this before. Particularly beef liver is so rich in so many different nutrients, minerals, amino acids, peptides, and so on. It's just such a powerful food. And when you think about why it has all of these nutrients and why it has it in such big concentrations, like you could see in this photo, vitamin A, 5,640 micrograms. That's an insane amount of vitamin A, and you basically won't find that in any other food on this planet, not even close actually. The same goes for things like vitamin B12. It goes for many of the other B vitamins. It goes for many of the minerals. So why is this? Why does beef liver have so many different nutrients in so high concentrations? It's basically because the liver is a storehouse. It stores all the nutrients of the animal. So for example, when a cow eats grass or it eats grains and it converts those nutrients into bioavailable nutrients in its body, like vitamin A and so on, it is not always able to use all of those nutrients immediately, but instead of just flushing them out of the body, the cow's body is sort of very clever. It starts to store them, and it does that by storing them in the liver. So you can think of the liver as just a gigantic storehouse of the animal and all of its nutrients. And that's why you'll find so many different nutrients in there. And the other thing about liver is that it's basically this clump of blood. Yeah, I know that sounds kind of gross, but it's also kind of what makes it so healthy. So blood is what transfers all nutrients inside the body, and it has this very living mineral and nutrient activity that you can't really find in anything else inside a living organism. The blood is a very special fluid, and because there is so much blood in beef liver, it's just going to have that very profound effect when you combine it with all the nutrients and the living enzymatic activity of the blood, where it's just going to be able to have these profound benefits for your focus, your brain health, but also especially your vision. And this is because vitamin A is also known as retinol, and you have something in your eye called a retina. And that retina basically thrives on retinol, and that's why everyone always talks about vitamin A is so good for vision health, because there is this whole interaction with our eye and how it works with that specific nutrient. So that's why eating beef liver, which has this insane amount of vitamin A, can actually give you supercharged vision. And this is not anything new. This is something that has been used throughout history a lot. Actually, the ancient Egyptians and Babylonians, etc., they used beef liver to cure night blindness in people successfully. We have studies proving this. It was very common to use beef liver as a sort of vision remedy to help people see better, to help people see at night. So this is something that you as well can use it for. So that's a bit about liver. We could talk about many other different things that's very cool and unique about liver. But I want to talk about how you should be consuming this, because the most effective way to eat liver is actually to eat it raw. And I know that sounds very, very unpleasant, but the reason we want to do that is because a lot of those nutrients that we want to get out of the liver from the blood, etc., is actually very easily oxidized and destroyed when we cook it. It's not going to destroy everything, so if you want to cook it, you can do that. There are recipes out there who try to make delicious liver recipes with like onions and sauces and stuff. You can do that, but in my experience, it just doesn't taste good anyway. Like liver is not gonna taste good no matter what you do. So I'd much rather eat it raw and get the most amount of nutrients out of it that way than try to cook it and add all these different things, which in many cases to me makes it taste even worse. Like when you cook it, it doesn't taste as good as when you eat it raw, in my opinion. The way I would do it if you just can't stand the taste or thought of eating raw liver is to basically just take it, cut it into very small pieces, eat those small pieces, chew them for a bit, and swallow with some water. So this would basically be like taking some sort of pill. And because liver is so powerful, you don't really have to eat it that often. So that would be the good news. You could eat liver like once a month or even less and get a lot of benefits and a lot of nutrients in. And then you don't have to eat it for the rest of the month, and you can just move on to some foods that are a little more appealing. So that's the way I would do it. So there are some very important points to make here about the quality. So keep in mind the liver is the storehouse of all the nutrients, but it's also the storehouse of all the toxins. The liver basically filters toxins, and because of that, if you get liver from a conventional animal who's been living inside and has been filled with medications and toxins from its food and so on, that liver is also going to have a lot of toxins, and it's also not going to have as many nutrients. So you want natural, organic, grass-fed options because it's just going to be free from that stuff. And some people are very concerned about bacteria and stuff like that from eating raw liver. If you want to be on the safe side, just freeze your liver when you get it and thaw it up when you need it, and you're not going to be worried about any parasites or bacteria in there. Okay, then we have the second food, which is oysters. Oysters are incredible. Oysters are by far nature's most abundant source of zinc. Zinc is a very important mineral for many different mechanisms in our body, especially when it comes to testosterone and producing adequate amount of energy and stuff. Zinc is so crucial, and it's something that most people lack today, and that's why oysters can have this very profound effect on our energy levels, our cognitive performance, our testosterone, and all of those positive benefits that we can get from the mineral zinc, basically. And you can see oysters have 91 milligrams of zinc in a single serving. The second on that list of highest zinc foods would be something like beef and lamb, which has only 6 milligrams. So it's just off the charts. Again, like with liver, it's just so concentrated in specific nutrients. And you can see here on this list some other minerals like copper is also insanely high in oysters. And copper works synergistically with zinc, so you're going to get a perfect balance of those two minerals along with selenium and other minerals to really supercharge your absorption of those very powerful minerals. You also have an abundance of B vitamins. You have omega-3s in there, which are very powerful for your brain health. So this is just overall a very powerful superfood that you can include. Again, like with the liver, you don't have to eat this a lot. You can eat a couple of oysters a month, and you're going to get a lot of nutrients in that way that's going to support your brain, your performance and everything in the highest possible way. So a lot of people today, when they eat seafood and oysters, they're obviously worried about the pollutants that's out there, like heavy metals, microplastic. The cool thing about oysters is that they're actually much less prone to this. And that's because they basically build up their toxins in their shell to protect the oyster meat inside, which is obviously the part you eat to get all the nutrients. So that's why it's sort of able to use things like heavy metals to protect itself. That said, it will have some amount of heavy metals and stuff, but it's much less as you would find in, for example, certain seafood options like salmon or tuna and stuff like that. So oysters are really a superfood all around. There's really no getting around oysters when we're talking about superfoods and optimizing performance and brain power and energy levels. You'll eat these and you'll just feel amazing afterwards. It's something that a lot of people also call an aphrodisiac. So it basically tunes into our sex hormones and everything, produces more testosterone in men, and all of that is just a very, very powerful food. And perhaps this is why we always associate it with like rich people or high performers or wealthy people. It's because it's basically the top of the food chain food that the people who are on top of the world basically, because it's like the high performer food, is something that the person on the top of the food chain, on the top of the tribe or whatever would be eating. So it kind of makes sense in that way, at least in my mind. So yeah, with that being said, let's move on to the next food. And this is another one of those usual elite wealthy people type of foods, and that's caviar and fish eggs. So fish eggs are kind of similar to oysters in the sense that they have a lot of selenium, they have a lot of omega-3, but they also have a lot of choline, which is very crucial for energy and brain power, and it's something we just don't get enough of in our Western diets. And this is where you can use something like fish eggs or caviar. Obviously, caviar will be very expensive, so depending on your situation, it might not be realistic as an option for you to eat. But again, you don't have to eat a lot of this, and you can find things like salmon roe or other fish eggs in even supermarkets and stuff of a reasonable quality. Again, you want to be really concerned with the quality here because it can have a lot of contaminants, and also they often add like artificial colorings and stuff to this, and antioxidant chemicals and stuff. You want to avoid those. You want to get just something that's straight up just fish eggs of high quality, preferably wild caught, and that's where you're going to get the highest amount of benefits basically. So again, fish eggs are really a fertility type of food. It can really impact your hormones positively, and hormones are what regulate our energy levels and a lot of our brain power. So it's just where we are going to be able to really supercharge our cognition energy levels by including these things. Many people use these things as a testosterone optimizer, and it's definitely better than any pill or supplement you'll ever take that says that it's supposed to boost testosterone. This is the real stuff that's going to boost your testosterone and help you out in that regard. It's such a positive food for our hormones, for our reproductive systems and everything. And again, maybe that's why elite people are always seen eating these foods. Maybe it's something that helps them with their performance. I don't know, is there some kind of connection there, or is it just some fantasy cartoon thing that we've been sort of indoctrinated with our TV shows and movies? Maybe, I don't know. I just find that kind of interesting because when you look at the nutrients of it and you look at its mineral profile and all of its B vitamins and even things like vitamin D, which is very hard to get in any other foods that are out there. You basically can't get vitamin D in any foods except for certain seafoods, and sometimes a little bit in eggs and grass-fed beef, but it's going to be much less than what you would find in something like salmon roe, which is so high in vitamin D. So again, as with the other two options, this is not something you have to eat a lot of. You can do this once a month. You could do more, you could do less, depending on your specific situation, goals, etc. But it's just not something that you have to eat every day, and I would actually advise you don't do that, because there is such a thing as too much nutrition, believe it or not. So nutrients in our body are supposed to be synergistic with each other, and if we just eat a bunch of salmon roe, for example, we're just going to increase our selenium to a point where it's going to impact all the other minerals. Or if we eat a bunch of liver, for example, we're just going to get way too much vitamin A. So that's just another very important point that I just want to mention here. You don't want to go overboard with these foods. You don't want to turn into the liver king, for example, and just eat liver every single day and all these other organs and stuff. That's way too much. You're going to get the opposite effects of what you're looking for. You want to sort of replicate nature and how we would work in nature when we hunted animals back in the day. So we would kill an animal for our tribe. We would eat the most sacred and powerful parts first, for example, the liver. And then we would sort of eat all of the other flesh and meat and stuff like that. And that's what was going to be our sustenance for the next long time until we catch another animal. And then we eat the liver again. So that's why you want to like incorporate this on a monthly or bi-weekly or nothing more than that basis, because that's where you're going to get the benefits without getting any imbalances and stuff like that. So I hope that makes sense. Another very interesting thing to me about caviar and fish eggs is when you see those bears, for example, who catch salmon on the waterfalls and stuff. I'm sure you've seen those pictures or videos. The bear doesn't actually eat the entire salmon. It only eats the females and it opens them up and it eats the eggs of that salmon and then just leaves everything else there. So it wants the caviar, it wants the fish eggs. That's where the bear is able to get all those nutrients and hoard it into its fat so that it can go into hibernation throughout the winter. It's just basically eating for nutrient density. So I find that very interesting, and maybe you find that interesting as well. But let's move on to the next food. And this is another spicy one, let's call it that. This is cod liver. So this is something that's kind of personal to me. I've been eating this for a long time. I remember the first kind of times I ate this, I literally started feeling like Bradley Cooper did in Limitless. Like this had such a profound effect on my brain health and my energy levels. And there are several different reasons for this. The first reason is definitely because this is the highest food that you could possibly eat ever when it comes to omega-3 fatty acids to support your brain health. And I think this is what I noticed. And also I have like ancestral genes in me that sort of thrive on high fatty foods. I'm from the north, where the Vikings, for example, they used cod liver and stuff like that to support themselves throughout the winter so they could get enough omega-3s and vitamin D, because cod liver is also very, very high in vitamin D, and that's another part of it that makes it very, very effective. If you live in these sort of colder, darker places, it can sort of give you nature's most powerful, abundant vitamin D supplement that you could ever get. So it's very, very powerful, and I just achieved insane benefits when I started eating this. So perhaps you find this kind of disgusting, it doesn't look too appetizing, I get it, but surprisingly it actually tastes really good. So I don't really like real liver, it doesn't taste good to me, but when I started eating this stuff, it tastes really, really good. It has this very delicate flavor. They actually call it the foie gras of the sea, so you can take that how you want, but to me it tastes good. You can try it out, see if you think the same. Maybe you think it's disgusting. I mean, some people just don't really like it, some people really like it. So again, you want to be really concerned with the quality. You would never get anything from a farmed fish if you want to eat the liver. You can get these Icelandic cod liver tin cans pretty much everywhere in the world, from my knowledge. And this is wild caught Icelandic liver. It doesn't really get much better than that. And obviously you're getting it in a can, so you're going to get some negative chemicals and stuff from that can. So I wouldn't eat this a lot, but I would try it out because you're going to get more benefits than negatives from that can. So it's just a very, very good thing, and you can definitely experience very good effects from eating this. Just notice how your body reacts, and you're gonna experience great results from trying this. I highly recommend it. And something that's also interesting about cod liver is that it's just so energy dense. I don't know of any other natural food that is as energetically dense as cod liver. It has over 500 calories and only 100 grams. That's unheard of in any other food. So it's just a very nutrient rich but also very energy rich food. So that's just another very unique thing about this food. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You won't find any other food that has more omega-3, vitamin D, and these very hard to get nutrients. It also has a lot of the other nutrients that you would find in, for example, beef liver. So it's just a superfood that has basically everything that liver has, plus vitamin D and omega-3. You're basically getting all essential nutrients pretty much in this food, except for perhaps vitamin C, which you wouldn't find in here. And it's not like you get everything in the perfect quantities either, so you can't just eat cod liver for the rest of your life and be set. But it is something that you can eat on a weekly or monthly basis to really supercharge your nutrition storages and really supercharge your energy your sex hormones, your testosterone, and especially your brain power. So let's move on to the next food. And here we're going to talk about bone marrow and bone broth. So the reason this is so crucial and so effective for our health nowadays is basically because of the amino acids and peptides we find in there. We find very high quantities of things like arginine, glutamine, glycine, proline. These are amino acids that really support our brain health, our joint health, and basically makes our body function like a well-oiled machine. And you also find abundant sources of collagen, gelatin, and GAGs, which are things that are very, very tough to get on a standard diet as we eat it nowadays. No matter how clean you eat and everything, these are nutrients that you're basically not getting, that your body needs a lot, actually. So the way we eat as modern humans is that we mostly eat muscle meat. We don't really eat a lot of meat off the bone. We don't really consume the things that our ancestors consumed to be healthy. And that would be things like bone marrow and meat off the bone and getting all of these collagen, peptides, and all of these gelatin compounds, which is actually what our gut and stuff is made out of, which is what our brain needs to function optimally. And it's something that can really improve your overall gut situation a lot, which in turn will make you digest food better and extract more energy from it. So it's just a very powerful food when it comes to all of these different amino acids, peptides, and collagen, etc. So that's why we really want to focus on these foods to increase our performance, because it's just going to scratch that itch that we're not really itching with all of the other foods we're eating nowadays. And that's why it can be so powerful. But it's not just about the peptides and amino acids. We also have an abundance of minerals, which again is very important for how your body sort of synthesizes and works with the energy it produces. So we need the right minerals. And most of the food today that we eat is mineral deficient, because our soil is basically mineral deficient. So we can get a lot of the energy that we need and want by basically focusing more on the minerals that we get from these specific foods like the bone broth and bone marrow. So bone marrow is something that's pretty easy to eat, in my opinion. It is pretty appealing. It doesn't really taste like much. It's basically just fat inside this bone that you can sort of scoop out, and you can even use it like butter or other fats that you would cook in and use it like that. That's what a lot of people do. It actually has sort of a similar texture as butter and other fats that you would use. So that's one way you could use it. You could also heat it and put toppings on it and eat it. It tastes really good, honestly. It's very important that you go for grass-fed organic animals like grass-fed lamb or grass-fed beef, preferably. Because I've noticed if you go for conventional bone marrow and stuff, it has this weird aftertaste and it just doesn't taste good. And that's why a lot of people, when they say, oh, I don't like bone marrow, especially because they're eating the wrong quality. Because if you get grass-fed bone marrow, there's no taste at all. It's just like a fatty taste. And yeah, it tastes really good. But another thing you can do is basically make bone broth. So that's basically like a soup that you make from the bones. You can also buy this in certain health stores and stuff at a pretty good quality. And this is just able to actually concentrate even more of the collagen out of the bones and everything. So this is also a very powerful thing that you can make. You can make big batches. You can freeze it, and then you can take it up when you want to consume it, basically. It's very gut healing. It's a very good source of minerals. It's an immune booster. It has gelatin. It's very good for keeping your joints and your skin especially glowing and healthy. It just has so many benefits. So I highly recommend to try out some bone broth and some bone marrow. It's something that's really powerful when it comes to brain health and how our gut works to extract more energy and create more energy in our bodies. And just, it's a very good food, basically, to include in your diet. So try this out if you want to. And then we have number 6 here. So I just kind of wanted to actually also include some plant stuff here, because I'm just talking about all of this very primal ancestral stuff. But it's not like I'm against plants or I'm on some kind of carnivore primal Liver King diet at all. I'm very much adverse to a lot of that, actually. So there are certain plants out there that can get us very good results when it comes to performance, energy, and there are certain plant superfoods out there as well that I like. And one of those would be this sea buckthorn. So this is very high in vitamin C. It's basically the highest organic vitamin C fruit or berry. I don't actually know if you would call this a fruit or a berry. I'm just going to call it a berry, but whatever. It's very high in vitamin C, and it has this synergistic complex of also polyphenols, which makes it just so powerful for your immune system and really turning that on. And vitamin C is something that we need in very high quantities nowadays, because we basically have a lot of oxidative stress as modern humans from pollution, air pollution, and microplastic and everything else that comes into our body. We need a lot of oxidative support. This is what just eating a couple of sea buckthorns can really help you out with. So I highly recommend you try that. You will experience like a slight energy boost if you eat this, in my experience. You want to try to get it as fresh as possible. So these grow in a lot of places, especially if you live close to the sea. You can find these trees where they grow on. You can sort of pick a couple. You can eat them. They're very bitter. They don't really taste good, honestly. But you only have to eat like 5 or 6 or 10 or however many you really like. And it's something that can really support you and give you that flow of, like that flush almost of energy from all of the antioxidants and vitamin C activity that you find in there. So this is a plant food that I really like when it comes to superfoods, and that's just something I wanted to mention here. Another way you could get a lot of vitamin C would be from citrus fruits like lemons, oranges. Those are good as well, but I just like sea buckthorn the most when it comes to like the superfood aspects. That's where you're gonna see that immediate result in terms of energy and stuff like that. So you can try that out. So if you buy them online in powders and stuff, or if you buy them in supplement form, they're not going to be as effective in my opinion. You want to sort of get them fresh, at least as fresh as possible, and that's where you're going to see benefits from it. I wouldn't really say you're going to get a lot of benefit from the supplement versions, but maybe there are some very good ones out there that I haven't really discovered, so you could look into that. But personally, I would try to get the living real sea buckthorns, and that's where you would see the benefits basically. Now, I could go on and on here about all of these different superfoods that have all of these amazing compounds and benefits that you could use to enhance your performance, your energy levels, your focus, and just your overall health in general, and just take it to elite heights. I really want to get into that, but obviously that would be way too much for this video. And also, a lot of these foods that you would want to include, they depend on so many different factors. Your perfect protocol depends upon so many different factors. Your ancestry, you have your genetics, your environment, your food sources, you have things like seasonal change, mineral deficiencies, your goals, your health markers, your nutrient deficiencies, your previous medication, your current medication, your symptoms, your toxin exposure, your hormonal profile, your work-life balance, your age, your gender, and so much more. So these are all things that you have to keep in mind, that you have to think about in terms of finding your perfect specific protocol. So there's a lot of different things to look at here, and it's not as simple as just go out and eat a bunch of liver and oysters and you're gonna see the highest possible results. Because keep in mind, a lot of people today, they spend hours and hours of research and they hire professional trainers and people who do their nutritional protocols, and they do this because all of us are different and we have different requirements, we have different goals, we have all of these different things, as I just mentioned here, that we want to get into. So you basically have to take all of this into account, and you have to research all of these different things and understand them properly if you want your perfect protocol to take you to your peak health and basically want to thrive as much as possible. Of course, I'm also very willing to do this for you. That's basically what I do. That's why I offer private coaching, so that people can achieve their highest potential and their peak health. And I basically do everything for you. I source the foods for you. I help you out with your goals and all of these different things. So if you want to learn about my private coaching, you can click below and you can apply. And other than that, just stay healthy and stay energized.